Coming up on Double Tap TV.
This week on Double Tap, we dive into the scary side of tech. We bring you some great resources when losing your vision, and Stephen taps his own experience for some helpful tips and tricks.
The latest tech.
In second place, with a total of 5 points.
Interviews.
The most useful product we can at the lowest possible price.
Accessibility.
I'm loving it and I'm sticking with it.
This is Double Tap TV.
We're back on another edition of Double Tap TV. Welcome to it. I am Mark Aflalo, as always with Stephen Scott. Stephen, so happy to be here this Halloween week. It's so much fun to talk about tech. I thought your studio would be a little bit more spooky, kind of what I expect to see.
Oh, am I not scary enough?
You make a very good point there. I didn't really think about that. You know what? I'll adjust this in post-production. We can definitely take care of it.
Okay.
Thank you guys for being here. The email address is feedback@AMI.ca. On Twitter, we are at Double Tap Canada with the hashtag AskDoubleTap. Thank you guys for sending us all your emails and all your feedback. It's so much fun to read interaction with the audience because we do things here. We have no idea how you're going to respond to it. So thank you for getting involved. And I know that, Stephen, you tend to a lot of the emails and the website stuff. So you see a lot of that interaction with people, right?
Yeah, it's great to hear feedback, and actually, more importantly, I think get questions as well. Let's start a conversation here, and that's what this show is about. That's what the radio show is about. If you want to, ask us any questions, just use the hashtag on Twitter, or just drop us an email at feedback@AMI.ca. You'll also find us on Twitter at Double Tap Canada.
Now, Stephen, you and I talk before the show. We talk about different themes and different things we're going to talk about during the show. And when it came to this show, because it kind of fell in the Halloween week, we thought about, I guess the question was, what scares you about tech? And there's so many ways that you can look at this, but I think the approach that we're going to take today is to talk about your story when you started losing your vision and the things that you were worried about and the things that scared you as your vision got worse and worse, and how those tools and the various things that you used made your life better and how you introduced yourself to them, right?
Yeah, it's interesting because, of course, this is a technology show, right? And the whole point of this show is to talk about the latest tech. But the difference between this tech show and probably every other technology show out there is that this is a deeply personal thing. Now, technology is deeply personal, right? But this technology, access technology, is deeply personal because it comes with it a huge emotional roller coaster. Losing vision is a real challenge for anybody without a shadow of a doubt. In fact, I think in recent surveys it's been said that losing your sight is the one sense people fear losing most. And I think, Mark, you'd probably say that's true, isn't it? I mean, of course you'd be terrified to lose your sight. I mean, there's nothing shameful about admitting that. But I think when it comes to my own experiences, I've always had low vision, but I'm realizing now how much vision I probably had compared to what I've got now. About 3 years ago, my health took a bit of a downturn. I'd put on a lot of weight. I ended up having a heart attack, and as a result, actually lost more of my vision. I mean, how cruel is that, right? I have a heart attack, and I lose vision out of it. And my heart apparently was fine by the end, which was kind of bizarre. But the point is that I ended up having to face this journey of what I call losing my sight again. I thought I'd kind of got used to the whole idea of losing vision or having low vision at least. Now I was in a position where I was able to get by using my Windows computer or my Mac or my iPhone fairly reasonably, without any kind of major accessibility improvements. Large text maybe, magnifier, zoom, that kind of thing, yes. But, and on the computer I would just make the text as big as possible. I was getting by. But when this happened, when suddenly I was faced with the reality of my sight getting less and less and less, and my useful vision becoming useless vision, I suppose I got to the point of thinking, I've got to do something about this. And it scared me. It did scare me. Because I thought, what about my job? What am I going to do if I can't use computers anymore? Computers are my life. I mean, how would we do this show without computers? How would I do a technology program if I can't use technology? And that was when I had to learn that I had to start embracing new ideas and realizing that I could use technology. I just would use it in a different way from a sighted person or someone who's got reasonable partial vision. And that's what I did. And I started using JAWS on my work computer, and I realized that The screen reader was actually very difficult to learn, and it was a challenge and a bit of a nightmare. But I thought, I have to learn to use this. I've got to do it. Because if I don't, I'm going to face problems. And what I realized was, only within a few weeks of a very difficult couple of weeks, don't get me wrong, it was a difficult couple of weeks. But what I learned was, I could do it, and actually in some ways I could use the computer faster and more efficiently than my sighted colleagues. I could rattle through emails. It was amazing. I was getting through emails, no problem at all, racing through stuff. And then I learned to edit using no screen as well. And that was an interesting challenge, but I did it. And each step, I realized that I was on this new journey where every single step was going to teach me something new that I could do, something new that would lead me to something else, and that every step forward was just another step forward to something else even better. And it would mean that I could use all the things I wanted to use. I could use my iPhone with VoiceOver, learn that, again, a challenge for sure, but just taking the time. And I guess my top tip to anybody out there who's in this position, you might be sitting there thinking, you may be feeling the same way. My word to you is, try and talk to somebody, try and get involved in your local organisations like CNIB, who do amazing work, and especially around technology. Get in touch with those guys because they can help you. Don't sit alone at home and think you're on your own. Trust me, you're not. There are lots of us out there, and that's why I do this show, because I want to tell you about all the technology that I've learned about that can make our lives better.
Stephen, how aware were you of those organizations and not only the organizations, but the tools at your disposal that could make your life that much better? Were you aware that they existed to the extent that you are now?
I suppose I was in a good position because I worked in the field of vision loss. So I worked with a national charity in the UK called RNIB, as I still do to this day as well. I still have a job there. And I do this, and I'm aware of what's going on, I'm aware of the technology, but it's very different to knowing how to use it. And it's very difficult to find resources. This is another big problem, again, why I wanted to do this. It's very difficult to find resources that a stupid person like me can understand. There's lots out there, and hundreds of books, and 100-page books and all the rest, but nothing that just gives you like a YouTube video on how to use JAWS, right? So that's something that I want to do here, and something I want to encourage people to try. These things are all challenging, of course they are. But think back to the days when you couldn't even use a computer. That didn't stop you. You still had to learn to use the computer. Well, all you're doing is using it differently. And I would encourage anybody actually just to try Narrator on their Windows PC or VoiceOver on their Mac, and just realize what living with eyes free is, essentially. Eyes free, no screens, nothing. It is a very different way of working, but it's brilliant once you get used to it. It does take time, and it does take a lot of patience. But in the end, it does pay off.
Now, you embrace technology, and you've always been a technology fan for a majority of your life, but there are people out there who aren't, who are scared of technology almost as scared as they are of losing their vision. So to have to tackle not only vision loss, but also now embracing technology in a way they never did before, that must be a challenge as well. Yeah, it is.
But it's interesting, I hear this a lot from people who'll say, well, I just don't use smartphones. A lot of blind people say this to me. No, I don't use smartphones. I'm not interested in that. I want to use specialist technology instead. My view is, that if you were out in the street and you were constantly falling over things and you were bumping into things, and you were realizing that actually getting around was becoming a real challenge, and that the only way you could get around was by using something like a white cane, I think you would probably come to the realization very quickly, you've got to use a white cane. And you do. We all have to take responsibility for our own lives. And I'm a big believer in everybody out there embracing this technology, because it's the future. It's not going away anytime soon. But the most important thing is, this technology is now made with blind people in mind. It isn't like 10, 15 years ago when you couldn't buy a new smartphone. I remember I had a Sony Ericsson P800, which was the coolest phone of ever, and it was the worst phone in the world because I couldn't even see it, never mind much else. It had a touch screen. It was almost iPhone-like, but trying to be an iPhone, more like a PDA back in those days. And that was great technology, but None of it was accessible. We could not have done this show in those days. That's changed. So it's up to all of us to try and embrace. I know the challenges. I understand. I'm one of those people who sat there, I've thrown my phone at that wall more times than you could imagine because of the difficulties and the challenges that come with learning this stuff. But you've got to do it. At least try. And if it doesn't work for you, there are other options out there. Like if it's a smartphone, you've got Synaptic. If it's a computer, you've got the PC with Dolphin software, with Easy Guide. All of those things are out there. There are ways to get started. But my suggestion would be get in touch with an organization like CNIB to start with and start your tech journey with us. And we'll help you. Ask DoubleTap and we'll answer your questions.
So let's flash back to your younger years when you started embracing technology in a way that was helping your life. We'll take a quick break and come back and talk about your journey and give people some tips that you learned along the way that will help them along their journey as well. It is Double Tap TV. He is Stephen Scott. I am Mark Aflalo. Again, feedback at AMI.ca is the email address, at Double Tap Canada on Twitter, and use that hashtag AskDoubleTap. We'll be back in a moment.
Love Double Tap TV? Listen to AMI Audio for Double Tap Canada every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern for news and reviews on everything tech. This is Double Tap TV.
We're back on Double Tap TV. Mark Aflalo and Stephen Scott with you. I will keep reminding you of that email address and our Twitter handle. It is at Double Tap Canada. Use that hashtag AskDoubleTap. And of course, our email address, feedback at AMI.ca. Stephen, before the break, we were talking about your experience and your journey and the tools that are available to people and the resources. For example, this show is a great resource for people who are learning about accessibility. Where does one start? If I find out today that my vision is slowly degrading, what are the things I should be thinking about? Because I guarantee you I'm not going to be in the right frame of mind to really know even where to start.
When I think back about what I said earlier, I stand by all of it, but I would say that you're right. When you learn that you're losing your sight, you're not thinking about, how do I use an iPhone? It's probably not the first thought in your mind. It's loved ones' faces. It's, a whole host of things that are running through your mind, right? But at the same token, I think there are certain things you can do. And I think ultimately, it all comes back to organizations like CNIB, blind charities that are there to support. And, Canada's very lucky to have the CNIB, a brilliant organization. It's got an amazing array of services. And I think it's a good place to start. Get in touch with the societies because they can help you to find out what is on offer in your part of Canada, to know what's going on there. And also what that does is it puts you in connection with other blind people. That's the key. That's what did it for me. I met a guy called John, I'll never forget him. I met a guy called John who told me how to use an iPhone in 5 minutes in a lunch break.
Wow.
And he just explained it to me really simply. It's just like, you got a grid on the screen, you touch the screen, what you can see or what someone can see can be and will be read back to you. And that just seemed to make sense to me. So I just touched the screen. Yeah, and nothing will happen. No, nothing will happen. The only way you can action something is by double tapping. If you ever wondered why the show is called Double Tap, well, that's why, because double tap is an action. It's something that makes something happen. And that is how you use this kind of technology. Now, if it's a computer, yes, it is a bit different. There's a lot more to it. Again, that's where classes come in. But I think what I would say to you is be prepared. Now, not everyone can be lucky enough to be in this position, but if you are in a position where you are able to begin learning about this new technology, JAWS, a screen reader, or using the Mac, or using an iPhone with voiceover, or large text, or high contrast, or whatever it is that you think you might need, start learning about it now. And I would say this to you, Mark, as well. I mean, I know you're not losing your vision, and God, I hope that never happens for you. But the thing is, if you're aware of the accessibility options that are actually in your phone, like go into your phone, go to settings, go to accessibility, and under there you've got a whole wide range of tools that you can access: voiceover, zoom, magnifier, large text. You might even find, you might just want to put the large text on just to make the phone a bit easier to see for you. That's a tool you can use. It's not like you have to have your special disabled password to get into it. It's just there. It's for anybody. Accessibility is for all, not just for blind people or people who've got disabilities. So that's a really important thing. Get to know these tools, because if a situation were to arise for you or for someone in your family, you would be able to say to them with some authority, actually, do you know what? I know how this works. You don't have to worry about not being able to use that phone anymore, or accessing your favorite apps, or doing your, shopping online, or playing a game perhaps even, or watching Netflix. You can still do all that stuff, but you just got to do it a different way. And this is how you do it. So it's about preparedness as well. Download JAWS. You can go and get a demo right now from the website. Try NVDA, a free screen reader. Just press down the command button and press F5 on your Mac. That turns on VoiceOver, which is the screen reader on the Mac. It will walk you through a full tutorial of how to use the screen reader on the Mac. So all of this is there. That's the brilliant thing, and that's why I'm so keen, as I said earlier, to do this show, to tell you these options are there. Because if you know it's there, then it means you know that if the situation were ever to arise that you felt you needed to use it, you know what it is. And that's such a powerful thing. The tools are incredible nowadays in every device. So I think preparedness is really important. And something else I want to say as well, Mark, about young people, especially kids who are blind or partially sighted. If mums or dads are watching this and thinking, my kid's blind, I'd kind of like to get them into the world of technology, but where do I start? I mean, what would I buy them? Well, look, don't look any further. Get in touch with the CNIB. I know I mentioned them a lot this episode, but I do think
but
this is,
I know where you're going with this,
CNIB,
because you're going to talk about some of the programs they have, because yes, they're a great resource, but they have incredible programs like this one you're about to mention.
Yeah, Phone It Forward, which is a program where people are donating their old smartphones. I'm gathering mine up now to send because, well, I'm not using them. I mean, what are we like, Mark? How many smartphones have you probably got lying in a cupboard somewhere? After all your reviews and everything else. Yeah, exactly. Well, don't let them languish. If you've got an iPhone 4 or an iPhone 5 lying in a drawer, you're never going to use it again. You can send it into the CNIB and they will format it. They'll erase everything off it for you to make sure it's all clean, so that basically it can go to a blind child. I think that is a fantastic thing, because it teaches those kids really young how to use this technology, and it's a program I wholeheartedly applaud as well as support.
And you're just scraping the surface in terms of the programs that they and other organizations,
absolutely,
local organizations offer. And just Google search, blind organizations in your area, and I promise you're going to find a lot of resources and a lot of tools at your at your disposal. And it's so funny because we do this tech show and we talk about all these cool things, but as technology evolves, you look at things like those Amazon smart glasses that, yes, they're a gimmick and they were announced for fun, but these are tools that will eventually fit some kind of lifestyle and fit some kind of need, whether you're disabled or you're not. So I can just see how technology is going to evolve and make these things even better for your life.
I started going to the gym recently, and I've got a personal trainer, and she said to me the other day, I was talking a lot about Netflix shows, and she said, "Can I ask a question?" She said, "How do you watch Netflix programs? How do you know what's going on?" And I said, "Well, there's this thing called audio description." So I get my phone out and I said, "Check it out, turn on audio description," and I let her hear some of it. And she was blown away. And she said, I thought if you lost your sight, you just wouldn't watch TV again. Now, that's just one person I've spoken to, but she's going to tell other people about that. And that message is going to get out there that actually being blind, it's not the end of the world. In fact, it's just a different way of navigating the world that we all have to get used to.
This is Double Tap TV. He is Stephen Scott. I am Mark Aflalo. Stephen, let's take a quick break and let's get to some of those communication from our wonderful audience. Again, it's feedback at AMI.ca, and on Twitter it is at Double Tap Canada with the hashtag AskDoubleTap. Back in a moment.
For more great Double Tap TV content, visit AMI.ca/DoubleTap. This is Double Tap TV.
We're back on Double Tap TV. Mark Aflalo and Stephen Scott with you. Feedback at AMI.ca, at Double Tap Canada, on Twitter with the hashtag AskDoubleTap. Stephen, again, next year we have to focus on a little bit more of a spooky garb. I know that your mask is still on there. I mean, your face, but
thank you.
We'll try to get some spiders. Oh, look at that! A spider just crossed my screen there. Thank you guys for being here. We're talking about not being too scared of technology or letting technology, I guess, scare you in life, we've got a really fitting email here from Polly, which says, "My son was whispering something to me the other day, and Alexa whispered back to us. What on earth was that? It scared the out of me." Stephen, you and I were talking about this off the air. That's whisper mode on the Echo.
Yeah, it's not long arrived actually, and it is creepy, but it's a brilliant little feature. So you know what it's like. Middle of the night, you wake up and you wonder what time it is. And if you are like me and you're married and you sort of say, "Lady A," I'm not going to say her name because she's just behind me here and she'll get set off. So if I say, "Lady A, what's the time?" She'll say, "It's 4:31," and then the whole house wakes up.
Loud volume and wake up everybody in the house.
Exactly. So that's no good. However, you can now whisper to her, "What's the time?" And she'll whisper it back, which is brilliant, except for the fact that the first time I tried it, my wife had actually woken up and she was terrified at what she had heard. She thought someone was in the house. It is a bit creepy, if I'm honest.
Yeah, it is. It's a little bit creepy. So Polly, that's what your son experienced. And it's funny because it leads me into a conversation about Halloween, because I actually use a lot of my smart home devices in my favor. And a perfect example is I've got the Ring Video Doorbell on my home, and one of the features of the Ring Video Doorbell is that it can sense motion. So as someone walks up my stairs, I can use that motion sensor to trigger sounds. So I make it start to belt out spooky Halloween sounds and music. I'm trying to think of ways that I can get a smoke machine going, and I think I can do it. I'm going to try it for this year, making it turn on a smart plug for maybe 30 seconds so the smoke starts. Anything that you use yours for, or you have any clever ways that you've used technology to spook people out as they come to your door?
Well, again, I can just open my front door. I don't need technology for that. I can scare away the neighbours. No problem at all. No, actually, I use the Ring Video Doorbell actually for a similar purpose. But what we do is you can change the ring so that when they press the button, it can get, you could have a scary sound, as a loud whoa, ha, 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 or something, brilliant, love that stuff. The kids love it, everyone loves it, and it's great. Although I tend not to answer the door too much because then I have to give away candy, and I'm not keen on that.
You got to do what I do, Stephen, which is you buy candy for yourself,
true,
quote unquote.
Yes.
I'm doing quotey fingers now, for yourself. And candies for the kids, so that you have you choose who gets more and who gets which of the favorite candies.
They get the rubbish ones, and I get all the great ones, yeah. I'll be honest, I also like to listen to some of the ghost stories. I love doing that. I get my Victor Reader stream out, I download a couple of books onto the SD card, and my wife and I listen to those, or alternatively, we'll shove on Netflix and get some good audio-described horror going. And I have to tell you, there is nothing more scary in the world than a movie which is a horror with audio description, because that voice will just come out of nowhere at you, and it can be pretty terrifying.
Any favorite Halloween movies? I know my wife is really big into the Peanuts Halloween and what is it? Not Scooby-Doo. I always forget which one she's really into.
It can't be Scooby-Doo.
No, there's a pumpkin one, the Great Pumpkin, the Charlie Brown's Great Pumpkin.
I see. No, I
always
must
think
admit,
it's Scooby-Doo. Snoopy, Scooby-Doo. It's easy to mix those two up, right?
I must admit, I'm a bit of a horror fan. I like things like Saw. And I love Halloween, the movie, of course. Halloween is just a classic. In fact, I think the 25th or 30th anniversary one came out recently, terrifying as that is. But yeah, I mean, just some amazing movies that you can get at this time of year. And yeah, I love it.
Well, guys, let us know exactly what you do at your home. There's so many ways that people... I remember when I worked at a radio station about 20 years ago, our engineer, and this was back in the days before computers and smart home devices, our engineer would sit there with solder and would create these inventions that when motion was detected, something would pop out of a tree, confetti would fly, music would go, there'd be thunder, there'd be lightning. So there's lots of creative ways that people use technology to their advantage. And I think the more and more that automation and home automation gets popular, people are putting them to use in very, very different ways. So if you happen to encounter one when trick-or-treating with your kids, or you happen to be planning one, please do let us know. It is feedback@AMI.ca, and again, on Twitter, we are at @DoubleTapCanada with the hashtag #AskDoubleTap. Stephen, thank you for being here. Happy Halloween. Don't eat all that candy, okay?
I will.
You will. Yes. Absolutely eat it. Thank you guys for being here. We will see you on the next episode.
For more great Double Tap TV content, visit AMI.ca/DoubleTap.
Hosted by Mark Aflalo and Stephen Scott.
Editing and graphics, Mark Aflalo and Will Attar. Production assistants, Wendy Kaufman. Integrated Described Video Specialist, Ron Rickford. Coordinating producer, Jennifer Johnson. Director Production, Karen Nye. Director Programming, Brian Perdue. VP Programming and Production, John Melville. President and CEO, David Arrington. Copyright 2019, Accessible Media, Inc.